One day in mid-August, the sun beat down mercilessly on a small neighborhood in a suburban district of Vietnam. August is usually the month when, in any other year, people would be bustling with beach plans, booking hotels, and showing off photos of suitcases and boarding passes on social media. Passed by this year with an entirely different face. There was no sound of buses departing the stations, no phone calls inviting friends on trips, and no one even mentioned travel or holidays. The sweltering heat blended with a silence so prolonged it felt suffocating. The road in front of the house was deserted, without a single soul passing by. There was only the sun glaring down on the gray asphalt, so hot it seemed to make the very air vibrate. The houses on both sides of the street remained shuttered all day. Fences were drawn high, and at the entrance of the alley hung a lockdown notice, its colors faded by the sun and rain. The entire area was under a large-scale quarantine due to COVID-19. Time felt as though it had been locked up alongside the people, slow, heavy, and weary. These August days bled into one another, long and monotonous, making people forget the sense of anticipation that usually defined this time of year. In the living room, Van's father lay stretched out on an old sofa, remote in hand, eyes glued to the TV screen while his mind wandered elsewhere. He flipped from channel to channel, news, movies, home shopping, but nothing could hold his attention for more than a few minutes. Boredom was etched into the face of a man used to busy days, now suddenly trapped within four walls. From the kitchen, the dry clatter of pots and pans echoed through the quiet house. Her mother was busy over the gas stove, cooking in a stifling heat that felt like being trapped in a sealed box. The blue flame licked the bottom of the pot, and the heat wafted directly into her face, soaking the back of her shirt with sweat without her even realizing it. Her mother had been cooking more than usual since the lockdown began. It wasn't because the family was hungrier, but because cooking had become her only way to kill time, a way to feel like she was still doing something useful amidst those helpless days. While stirring a pot of soup, her mother called out to the living room, her voice a familiar mix of exhaustion and irritation. "Put out that cigarette. You've been moping around the house all day and you're still smoking. You're an adult, but you never listen. Do you want me to die of lung cancer one day?" The reproach fell into the still air, a line repeated so many times it had become a part of their daily routine. Her father didn't reply. He just reached for the ashtray and stubbed out the half-burnt cigarette with a reluctant habit. On the second floor, behind a tightly closed door, Van, the family's second daughter, sat before her computer screen. The small room was quiet, save for the rhythmic click-clack of the keyboard and the pale blue light reflecting off her face. Van was working online for a company in Kuala Lumpur. Her pace of life seemed entirely detached from the heavy atmosphere of the house. Her world at that moment was encapsulated in emails, virtual meetings, and back-to-back deadlines. Suddenly, a new email popped up in her inbox. The subject line made Van's heart skip a beat. She opened the mail, read every line, and froze. The email notified her that she had been awarded the Invest Your Talent scholarship by the Italian government. Van couldn't believe her eyes. She read it a second time, then a third, even scrolling up to double-check the sender's address to ensure it wasn't a prank or a mistake. As the reality finally sank in, her emotions erupted. She leapt from her chair, jumping for joy, her heart racing. She dashed down the stairs, shouting as she ran, "Dad! Mom! I got the scholarship!" As the words left her mouth, the house seemed to hang suspended in time for a few brief seconds. Her father stood frozen in the living room, remote still in hand. Her mother stepped out from the kitchen, ladle halted mid-air. They both stared at Van, as if trying to make sure they hadn't misheard, that this wasn't just a burst of cabin fever excitement from the lockdown. Are you serious?" her mother asked, her voice trembling. Van nodded vigorously, her eyes shining as she laughed through her tears. In that moment, months of suppressed emotions finally burst. Her mother burst into tears, laughing while wiping her eyes with the hem of her shirt. Her father cleared his throat, turning his face away, though his eyes were red. He smiled, a wide, deep smile, a world away from the constant gloom of the long days spent aimlessly watching TV. The small house suddenly became noisy, not from loud voices, but from a joy that seeped into every corner. Van was held tight, peppered with questions, and reminded of all her silent struggles that had previously gone unsaid. For the first time in a long while, Van felt that her quiet efforts had finally been seen. She returned to her room and sat before her phone to post a short update on Facebook. Nothing fancy or poetic, just a few lines announcing the scholarship. But within minutes, notifications began to flood in. Comments, messages, and congratulations from friends, relatives, teachers, and even people she hadn't spoken to in years. Van read every single one. Some praised her talent. Some expressed admiration. Others simply sent a heart emoji. Those words brought more than just joy. They made her believe her dream was real, that the path ahead, though still blurred, was opening a door full of hope. In that moment, Van almost forgot the pandemic, forgot the lockdown, and forgot the dead-end days she had just lived through. Before her eyes was a new vision, distant yet radiant, where Italy appeared as a bright spot amidst a string of gloomy days. But that joy only lasted a few days. As the COVID-19 situation grew increasingly complex, checkpoints between